Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? I just realized something. I'm a power gamer. Oh no. Well, here's what's going on. I'm making my character for the All for One Regime Diabolique game I'm going to be involved in. And what's happening is I'm becoming, and I can hear Complex Games apologists gloating as I speak. I'm becoming somewhat informed by the system and by the genre, but I'm also doing a little bit of power gaming as well. And I think we're all a bit of power gamers a little bit. But let me kind of walk you through the process because hopefully you'll find this somewhat interesting. I came up with this basic concept. Okay, I want to play some guy that's kind of young, not a D'Artagnan like ripoff, but somebody that's kind of idealistic, maybe just wants to make his mark in the world. Somebody wants to, he wants to matter, you know, um, that sort of thing. And I was thinking, well, maybe not too bright initially. So I was thinking maybe I would give him a 1 for intelligence because ability scores range from 1 through 5. 2 is nominally normal, and you have 15 points to spread around between 6, primary stats. So you can have 2 in every single stat, and then spread 3 more points around. So you can have 3 threes or a 4 and a 3, or maybe a 5, and everything else be 2s. Or you can suck one out of another thing. So wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and I wanted him to be strong-willed. So I'm thinking I want him to have a will of 4. And initially I was thinking to myself, well, you know what? Maybe I'll do one of those things because in Ubiquity, what you can do, you can take a talent. And swap out a 1 score for another in terms of your combat prowess. So like strength is generally the melee or fencing score, but what you can do is take a talent which says that they fight when they fence with their willpower. And so I was thinking that maybe I'd do something like that. Wasn't quite sure. And the other 2 characters so far, we're not sure what the 4th guy is going to make for a character. So I've been busting his chops about that. One guy's making a guy sort of a Van Helsing type guy, and the other guy's definitely making a ladies' man, shall we say? So interesting. So I'm sitting down, and here's what happens. I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to have probably like a 4 willpower. Maybe I'll have a 1 intelligence, and maybe I'll have a 3 in body and dexterity because I like a defensive character. I want them to live, and those are important stats for your health and for your defense. What happens is this: I'm leafing through everything, and I find these 2 really nifty talents because those are like kind of the feats. And in character creation, you get 1 freebie talent, and then you've got these other 15 points which you can spend on raising 1 attribute. You can buy another talent. You can buy a resource, which is important in the game too. But I'm thinking, okay, well maybe I won't get a resource. I was thinking maybe making my lackey, because you get a lackey, a better quality person, because that's one of the ways you can spend your talent, or you can maybe you have as a resource, maybe you have a benefactor, that sort of thing. But then I see, oh man, there is this 1 talent called parry, which allows you to parry as a reflexive action, so you don't have to waste your attack action. If you can just parry instead, and so that turns would normally be their offense versus your defense. And one of the things that happens in Ubiquity-based games is that if somebody attacks you or you attack somebody, generally you do damage because for the most part the die pools for an attack you might have something like a 10 die pool if you're really good with a sword. But the defense that somebody might have might only be a 5 die pool. That's about average. So unless you're rolling really good for your defense, good chance you're going to take some damage. But when you parry a blow, when you decide to forego your attack action, and then it becomes an opposed roll. As long as you roll higher than they do or a tie, you don't take any damage. But this is reflexive action. That's a talent. That's a really cool talent. I'm thinking, oh, okay, well I want that. And then I see this other talent, and it's called riposte, and that is a successful parry. You do damage. So if whatever this opposed roll is, if you score, roll more successes than your opponent, not only did you parry the blow, but you got one in on him. You were able to knock his blade aside and take that. Oh look, people are reminding me of stuff. Then you're actually able to do some damage as well. So I'm thinking that's cool. So here comes the power gamer now. I'm thinking, oh man, my guy can reflexively parry and then do damage. That's really cool. So what's going to happen is this. You got parry and riposte both as talents. So like now, my guy is some kind of prodigy. The game slows down for him when he's fencing. He can kind of see the attack before it's coming. Maybe he's just got this uncanny raw talent, and so he can knock the other fellow's blade aside, and he has a split second to actually get some damage in itself. Something that's pretty cool. So now, here's some deal. This informs now my choices of ability scores because. You look down, and for both of those talents, the prerequisite is that you have a melee or fencing ranking of 8. So, here's the deal. You can only take 5 points if I assign 5 levels to any given skill at character generation. That means your base score has to be at least a 30. So all of a sudden I realized I need a strength of 3 because once again I can no longer take this and switch around and make it willpower because that would be a third talent. I don't have a third talent. So now the guy has a strength of 3. And I'm also thinking to myself, you know, I don't want this guy to be stupid. So I figured, okay, we're not going to nerf his intelligence. So he's going to give him an intelligence of 2. So we're going to go, okay, he's got a willpower of 3. That's really kind of, I still want him to be kind of strong-willed. And we'll get back to that. So this informs my choice of having a 3 strength now. And so I'm spending some of my skill points at this point because you get 15 skill. It's a little confusing because you have 15 points to spend on this, broad talent thing, whatever. You got 15 points to spread around your ability scores. Then you got 15 points to spread around in skills. So in All for One Regime Diabolique, you have 4 0-level skills. Those are fencing or melee. You want it to be fencing. Then it's going to be ride, and then finally it's going to be muskets, firearms. And then you have I guess second finally, you can assign a 4th 0-level skill. Just choose one that would fit the guy's background. To raise that from 0 level to 1 ranking only costs you half a point instead of a full point. So what have I done? I've got this guy now, and I've got a strength of 3, and so I have to take fencing. I have to put 5 points in fencing, so that's going to cost me 4.5 of these 15 skill points. Then you want to have a fencing style. So I spent another half point because that's a specialty and a skill to have the Renoir style. Why did I choose that? Well, it's really simple because this guy has this nifty ability to parry and then riposte and do more damage. So I want one of those fencing styles that actually gives me a +1 to parry. That makes sense, doesn't it? At the same time, I'm already thinking, well, this guy's going to be a damage dealer. So I want to make sure that it doesn't take a negative to the 2 types of attacks, which are thrust and slash. So the only one that really qualifies for that is Renoir. So, in terms of feint and disarm, I get a -1 on those. In terms of thrust, I get 0, and then in terms of parry and slash, I have +1. So there I have. I've spent my first 5 points. I've informed my decision for what I'm going to do with this character in terms of strength. What else did I inform? I informed that he needs a 3 in dexterity. Why? Because the Renoir fencing style requires a 3 dexterity. So my ability scores were chosen and informed by that. So I have 3 dexterity, 3 strength, and 3 willpower because I want a high willpower. Okay, so next I spend some more skill points. I figured, all right, you know what? The kid's got to have some firearm skill, but not a lot. I don't want that to be his shtick. So I decided, I'm going to spend, the firearms is a 0-level skill, so I'm going to spend half a point to bring it up to 1, 1 skill rank. So he's got a 3 dexterity, that's what it's based on. So he's got, 4 ranks in there. His average is 2. Much less proficient than he is in sword. Now, what happens is, I'm starting to do some research on the 3 Musketeers. What are the tropes like? And so I watched the opening, 10-15 minutes of what looks like a terrible version of it from 2011. However, in the beginning scenes, young D'Artagnan has this little fight scene, and then he rides, and this is great riding scene, where he's doing all these crazy acrobatic things on this horse. And I'm thinking, you know what? Ride is, I would like this, kid to have like some fancy riding skills. So I figure, why the heck not? That's based on dexterity as well. I already have, it's already a 0-level skill. So I spend 2.5 more of my skill points, and I put 3 slots in ride, because remember the first point, first to half point, I can raise it up to 1 because it's a 0-level skill. Now I spent 8 of my skill points, and at this point, where am I? I decide my last 0-level skill is going to be Brawl, because this is kind of a departure from some of the other games I'm used to playing, where you kind of have a global attack bonus, and it really doesn't matter whether you're involved in fisticuffs or using a sword or whatever it is. So you can literally, in a ubiquity-based game, be really good with a weapon, but be completely inept with your fists. I didn't want my guy to be like that. So I figured, okay, his background, well, he had brothers. He had older brothers, so he's the youngest brother. So he got used to wrestling and beating people up or being beaten up. So I figured, okay, in Brawl, that's based off strength. I give him 2 levels in that, which cost me 1.5 points. So now I'm up to 9.5. And retroactively, because I look at the rest of the skills I wanted, and I had a half point left over, I figured, okay, well, I'll give him the specialty of grappling. So I spent another half point. So now I've spent 10 of my skill points. And they're just all literally on combat and writing. So all hopes of having a well-rounded character at this point are completely dashed, because there's not a huge skill set in here, but some of them deal with conning, matters of intrigue, being charismatic, all the kind of like, and you know, being influential at court, all that sort of things that a musketeer might be, you know, called upon to do. Might be stealth, you know, any kind of larceny. If you happen to have a sneakier character, okay, decide, well, my kid's completely ignorant of that, based on, you know, what I want him to be able to do otherwise. So I had to make some decisions, you know, and he's not going to be a magic character, so he's not going to have any of these other skills, no real academic type stuff. Why? Because I figured at this point, in for a penny, in for a pound, this kid is, you know, becoming very cinematic. And you're not going to be able to do a lot of cinematic stuff without some other physical abilities besides just being able to beat people up and swing a sword around and, you know, riposte, you know, all that sort of stuff. And we were having discussions in our little private group about, you know, our characters and whatnot. And somebody mentioned, well, okay, you know, you got to use some style points when you fall off a 3-story building. And so I'm thinking, wait a minute, I might be falling off of 3-story buildings, you know, and how did I get up there in the first place? So, you know, there's these 2 skills, and one is called athletics, and one is called acrobatics, and they're based on, not surprising, on strength and dexterity. So what did I do? I put 2 extra ranks for 2 points in acrobatics, and half a point into the splinter skill, or, you know, a specialization of break fall, breaking your fall when you fall off a 3-story building. And so I figured I'd spend the last 2.5 points, 2 points in athletics, and my extra half point on climb, because how the heck did he get up there in the first place? So my 15 skill points are spent, and I have a character that is, you know, very physically, you know, capable and able to do lots of cinematic stuff, which is kind of cool, because that's a good part of the Three Musketeers vibe. But at that point, my character got very informed by the mechanics and by the tropes and what I wanted him to be able to do. So there was a lot of things he is not. So, you know, I took a look at my character and decided, you know, this, you know, all of this, my initial kind of concept, and then, you know, his abilities and whatnot, kind of suggest a background, more like, okay, well, maybe he's probably the youngest son of some, you know, noble or, you know, semi-wealthy guy, probably an accent, probably has much older brothers, and so he has no hope of the family fortune, no hope of the, you know, inheriting any part of the family name, and he wants to matter. I already kind of figured that out as a kind of a motivation for him. So I figured, okay, so a kind of a personality or a character concept starts to emerge. So, you know, and that was almost completely, not entirely, but, you know, heavily informed by the system itself and the genre, and just kind of like a few basic thumbnail ideas of what I wanted this character to be like. So I have to finish some stuff up, though. At this point, I haven't really fleshed out the lackey. But we need some motivations. Although I kind of have that. I don't know if I call it glory or fame, or just I want him to matter. And, you know, he wants to matter. He wants to be somebody important. But he needs some flaws. And so I'm looking around at flaws. I'm thinking, okay, you know, and you know, he's young. And so it's funny. I like to look around and make sure thrill seeker, impulsive, curious, and lustful were the 4 that I came up with. You don't really want 4 flaws. And so I figured, well, lustful, it's probably going to get him into trouble. And I also had this kind of idea in the back of my head. He's in love with a goose girl. So, you know, maybe he might flirt around with some of the ladies, but, you know, I think he kind of has this romantic idea that he wants to marry, to become somebody, and go back and get this goose girl and marry her, and then, you know. So that's kind of this, you know, idea I have in my head for this young child who doesn't have a name yet. I call him a kid. He's probably 24 or something, which is a kid. Okay, I'm a lot older than that. And so let's see. Impulsive, I don't know. I played a lot of impulsive characters. That can be a little bit, get a little old. But I like the whole idea of, maybe I'll give him 2 flaws, thrill seeker and curious, you know? Because he probably just wants to make a name for himself, so, you know, let's seek some thrills. And I think curiosity. I like the idea of him kind of getting into trouble because he just can't leave well enough alone. Because that also kind of opens up this whole door for all the sorts of horror vibe we could get into it. And it'll probably tick off the Von Helsing type character quite a bit, you know? I imagine there'll be some inter-party bickering. And not that I'm trying to promote that, but just, you know, I just kind of started laughing to myself as the character kind of took shape. And okay, you want a strong willpower, because if you have to do any kind of reflexive, you know, will-based actions, you know, when you've all of a sudden ticked off some vampires or werewolves or God knows what else we'll run into. Yeah, good idea for him to have a strong will. So yeah, so that's pretty much, you know, the character concept that I've come up with at this point, and, you know, have had a kind of like, you know, power game a little bit. And you know, mess around with the numbers, and do a little bit more, you know, heavier duty character creation than I'm used to. But that's the actual process. That's you know, I didn't just kind of throw some numbers down. This was kind of a, you know, didn't take too long, but I just did some thinking and opened up the book and, you know, let some things suggest themselves to me, and run with that. So you know, hopefully you found that interesting. Oh, Oh no, I'm a power gamer. A power gamer.